my face and busted out with a guffaw. "Paw, Mr. Corbett ain't too swift, is he?" Chapter 37. The chinless old man returned, bearing in his good hand a tray with 3 steaming bowls of dark gumbo. "Look like we may be going to have some music, too," Hiram said, and his face lit up in a smile. 2 or 3 men had drifted in, still shiny sweaty from the field. They ordered beers and shot nervous looks in our direction. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how out of place I was in here. It was the Negro's place. Who was I to come in and sit down as if I belonged? At least they had the courtesy to let me sit there, which would certainly not be the case if one of them tried to order a beer in a white barroom. I was delighted to see a grizzled, middle-aged fellow taking out a banjo, tuning it up while his buddy drummed his hands on an overturned gut bucket. The thin, listless woman between them waited for the banjo player to plink a little chord, and then, without any introduction or ritual, she set into wailing. "Lord, I've been blue since my man done left this town." The little hairs on my neck prickled. "You heard the blues before, Mr. Corbett?" asked Hiram. "I have, one time," I said, "on Beale Street in Memphis. Sure done been blue since my man done left this town." "You like the way she sings?" Moody said. "I do," I said. "I like it a lot." Moody shrugged, like she didn't care much which way I answered her question. "I'm a devotee of ragtime music," I told her. "You a what?" said Moody. "A what'd you say?" "Admirer," I said. "I'm an admirer of ragtime." "No, that word you used. What was it again?" Moody had a bold way of speaking. I must admit I wasn't accustomed being addressed by a colored girl without the customary yes, sir, and no, sir. "A devotee," I said. "One who is devoted to something. I think it's from the French." "That's a pretty word," she said, "wherever it come from." He beat me, then he leave me, and now he ain't been comin' round. When that lament ended, the banjo man put down his instrument and brought out a battered guitar. Once again I was swept up in the mournful repetition, the slangy bent notes from the singer echoed by the guitar, the way it all fell together into a slow, rhythmic chant of pure feeling. This music was made from leftover parts of old field songs and hymns and slave music, but to me it sounded like something entirely new, and something quite wonderful. Chapter 38. My belly was stuffed full of gumbo and rice. My tongue still burned from the red pepper. I remarked to Abraham on the staying power of the cayenne. "Here, take a chaw on this," said Abraham. From his satchel he brought forth a length of brown sugarcane. I smiled. That's what our cook Aurelia used to prescribe for a sore throat or any other minor childhood complaint, a suck on a piece of sweet cane. "You got enough for family?" said Moody. "I got plenty, but it don't look right for a gal to chew cane," Abraham said. She put on such a pout that Abraham laughed and brought out a piece for her and another for Hiram. "My granddaughter is incorrigible," said Abraham. "I hope you can forgive her." "I don't need him forgiving me," she said. Her grandfather's face darkened. "Moody, watch your mouth." She dropped her eyes. "Yes, sir." "See now, Mr. Corbett, she got so comfortable settin' here next to you that she's done forgot how she's supposed to act. If you was any other kind of white man, She could be in big trouble right now, sassing you that way. Same thing goes for Hiram, even more so. I had the feeling he said this more for Moody's and Hiram's benefit than for mine. Moody kept her eyes riveted fiercely on the floor beside our table. See, when you're colored, you always about this close. He held up his fingers, indicating a tiny space, to saying the wrong word, or looking the wrong way. And that means you're this far from getting beat up, or kicked, or punched, or cursed, or getting strung up and killed by the KKK. I took a long sip from my beer. Everything a colored man does can be a crime these days, he said. I don't quite understand, I said. Moody's eyes came up. Let me tell him, Pawpaw. He hesitated, but then he said, all right. There's a young fella called Whitney, she said, gazing intently at me. He spent a day hoeing out the flower beds around old Miss Howard's house. Then when she was done, he told her how much it was. She didn't want to pay, said he hadn't worked that many hours. Then she calls up the sheriff and says Whitney done said something dirty to her. Well, she got him arrested, but that wasn't enough for him. They come drug him out of the jail and hung him up, killed him, all because he asked for his pay. Her eyes blazed. That's the truth, said Hiram. Sammy Dawkins brung his empty Coca-Cola bottle back to Sanders' store to get his penny back. Old Mr. Sanders tells him niggers don't get the penny back, just white folks. Sammy argues with him, and next thing you know, he's in jail for wanting his penny. Keep your voice down, Abraham said. There was a couple boys sitting on the sidewalk downtown. They was talking to each other, quiet-like, telling about this strike of colored men up in Illinois. Well, sir, somebody overheard what they said, and next thing you know, a bunch of men jump on these boys. One of them, they knocked out all his teeth. We get punished for boasting and for strutting and for talking too loud and for casting the evil eye. We get arrested for walking too fast or walking too slow or taking too long to say yassa. Moody was furious now. Her voice carried to tables nearby. Some of the people stopped their own conversations to listen. Colored man looks at a white woman, they kill him just for thinking the thoughts he ain't even thought, she said. If he even looks at a white woman, it must mean he wants to rape her or kill her, when they're the ones doing most of the raping and killing around here. Now calm down, Abraham said. Don't tell me to calm down. I know what it's like. It happens to me too, Pawpaw. I know, child. You don't know what happened yesterday. I was bringing the basket of ironing back to Ms. Cooper. You know she got that boy Dillard. He's not right in the head. Well, he out there pulling weeds in the kitchen garden. He looked at me. All I said was, howdy, Dillard, and he says something real rude like, maybe you want to go with me, Moody, or something like that. I just ignored him, Pawpaw. I just kept walking. But he come up behind me and grabbed me, like, touching my titties. Hush, said Abraham sternly. It's what happened, Pawpaw, she said. Then he says, oh, come on, Moody, you a nigger girl, and everybody knows that is all a nigger girl wants. And with that, she couldn't keep the tears in. She folded her arms on the table and buried her head. Hiram stroked her neck. I spoke softly. We're going to do something, Moody. That's why I'm here with your grandfather. There was silence. Then Moody looked up at me, and she was angry. Go home, Mr. Corbett. That's what you could do. Just pack up your bag and go home. Chapter 39. I guess you prayed for mail, Mr. Corbett, Maybelle said as I walked past the kitchen of the rooming house the next morning. And the Lord answered. She held out a plate with a pair of blackened biscuits and another plate with 3 envelopes. My heart lifted, but my happiness faded when I glanced through the letters and found that none of them had come from Washington. I smiled down at the biscuits, thanked Maybelle, and put them aside for disposal later. On my way over to the Slide Inn, I thumbed through the mail. First, I opened a flyer inviting me to a social and covered dish supper at the Unitarian Church in Walker's Bridge, 1 town west of Eudora. In the right-hand margin was a handwritten addition. Ben, hope to see you at the supper. Elizabeth. The next envelope also held an invitation. This one was a good deal fancier than the first, engraved on heavy paper, wrapped in a piece of protective tissue. Mr. and Mrs. Lee Jamlin Stringer request the pleasure of your company at supper on Saturday, September 27th, 1906 at 8 o'clock in the evening. Number 1 Summit Square, Eudora, Mississippi, RSVP. What was the world coming to? A fancy dress invite from L.J. Stringer, of all people? It was hard to believe that the sweet, kindly boy with whom I'd spent a good portion of my childhood was now in such a lofty position that he could send out invitations engraved on thick vellum, and that on his way to manhood, L.J. had invented a machine that shot twine around cotton bales in 1/8 the time it took 4 men to do the job. The Stringer automatic baler. Without it, cotton would no longer be king. I eased into a rear table at the Slide-In Cafe. I ordered coffee and a big breakfast of grits and eggs, patty sausage, and biscuits. I thought about L.J. Stringer for a moment or two, but my heart was heavy at the absence of a single letter from home. Why hadn't Meg written? I didn't really need to ask myself that. I knew the answer. But even if she was too angry, why hadn't she allowed the girls to write? I decided to detour by the post office just to make sure no letters had been accidentally sent to Judge Everett Corbett's home. Meantime, I took a slurp of the Slide-In's good chicory coffee and tore open the last of my 3 letters, the one without a return address. At first, I thought the envelope was empty. I had to feel around inside it before I found the card. It was a postcard like any other postcard. In place of a picture of the Grand Canyon or Weeki Wachee Springs, the card bore a photograph of a young black man dangling from a rope. His face had been horribly disfigured. The whip marks on his bare chest were so vivid I felt like I could touch them. On the other side of the card was a handwritten message. This is the way we cook coons down here. This is the way we will cook you. We know why you are here. Go home, nigger lover. Chapter 40. I didn't go home, of course. I couldn't. My mission was only just getting started. So I actually talked to some candidates for federal judgeships, and I continued my secretive investigation for Roosevelt. I even squeezed in a few hours at L.J. Stringer's party and remembered what a good friend he was. I felt I needed a haircut and a shave to start out the following week, right? And I knew where to go. Ezra Newcomb's. During my visit, I congratulated Ezra, Eudora's only barber, on the sharpness of his blade. This resulted in my receiving a 9-point instructional course on the most important techniques involved in properly sharpening a straight razor. The truth was, I had brought my own dull razor along, hoping to have Ezra sharpen it. You got to start her off real slow, then you swipe down the strop real fast, he was saying. This was exactly the lesson I had gotten from Ezra the last time he cut my hair when I was a boy of 18. Just don't understand it, Ezra said. A boy goes all the way up to Harvard, and they don't teach him how to sharpen a razor. I must have been out sick the day they gave that class. Ezra laughed and swept the bib off me with a dramatic flourish.